Hey, everybody. Welcome back. You're listening to The Blodgett Show. This is episode 57, and I want to welcome everybody to this week's version of Storytime Friday. So, once again, guys, welcome. This is The Blodgett Show. This is round two of Storytime Friday. This week's short story, written by yours truly, your host, myself, Chris Blodgett, is called Chasing a Dream. Jonathan was a man who was pretty humble compared to most other guys. He didn't have the highest opinion of himself. He certainly didn't think he was the best there was. He just went out every day and did his best to be the best guy that he could be. When he was a kid, life was pretty good. He grew up in a large city in the Midwest, and as most kids do, tried his best. He attended an elementary school until he was in third grade, and then when his sister started school at the age of 4 at a Catholic school, he switched to that school so he could be with her. However, when he entered the fourth grade, the teacher was not the greatest. She was one of those that students, when they get older, would go on to talk about and talk about how horrible things were in that class. Things were so stressful in that class that Jonathan would accidentally do something like knock his pencil off his desk onto the floor, and the teacher would give him detention. Detention at that school would consist of the student being expected to show up at school at 5 a.m. and perform crossing guard duty, and then mopping and massively cleaning the bathrooms. Keep in mind, school didn't start until almost 8 o'clock in the morning, so any student in detention was expected to do extra stuff for almost 3 hours before school started, and then attend their regular classes. Jonathan felt like the teacher in the fourth grade simply didn't like him. He had no idea why. He hadn't even done anything to deserve it. It seemed like no matter what he did, he always got into trouble. When he transitioned from third to fourth grade, the school added a seventh grade, and so the fourth and seventh grade were combined. So a lot of the homework assignment felt impossible for Jonathan. It was almost like the fourth graders were being assigned homework at the seventh grade level. Most of the assignments that he received, he didn't score high marks on. To say he was failing would have been quite an understatement. The funny thing was, he and the teacher did not even talk. He just showed up to school every morning, like he was supposed to, and did his best, and some days things went the way they were supposed to. Other days he couldn't do anything right. There were a lot of days, sometimes at least 3 each school week, where he got detention and had to come into school the following morning at 5 a.m. About halfway through the school year, he had been at school since 5 a.m. that morning, having got detention again that day. And as the teacher was going through her lesson plan, Jonathan yawned and stretched and accidentally knocked his pencil on the floor. Before he could even react and pick up the pencil, the teacher pointed at him and yelled, "Detention!" Jonathan was like, "What?" "But, miss," the teacher interrupted him. "Silence! Detention!" Jonathan sighed. He was really worried what his parents would think because he had already had detention twice that week, at least. When he got home, he was scared. He knocked on the door of his dad's study. "Come in," his dad said. "Hey, Dad," Jonathan said. "Hey, son, what's up?" his dad said. "Please don't get mad. I got detention again." "You did what?" his dad said. Before Jonathan could even respond, his dad had made his way from where his desk was to where Jonathan was standing. Smack! The next thing Jonathan knew, he was waking up on the floor. His dad had gotten up out of his chair, come over to him, and backhanded him so hard that he fell onto the floor unconscious. Jonathan woke up on the couch with his dad sitting next to him. "Dad, what happened?" "Son, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hit you like that. It's just that you've had detention 2 days this week, and now I have to take you up to school early again, and I got really upset. Are you okay?" Jonathan rubbed the side of his face and said, "Yeah, Dad, I'm okay." The next day, Jonathan did what he normally would do during detention. He threw on the reflective vest and did crossing guard duty and then massively cleaned the bathrooms. All while doing this, he would think to himself, I don't understand why I have to do this. But even though he was confused and didn't feel like he deserved it, he did what he was told to do. A few months later, his parents came up to the school to have a meeting with the principal about how their kid was doing. Jonathan didn't even know that they were there. Suddenly, about halfway through the school day, his parents burst into the classroom and basically like, Jonathan, grab your stuff, we're leaving. Jonathan was confused, but he did as his parents had told him. He grabbed his bag and his supplies and he went with his parents. After they left, his parents told him that they had met with the principal and she had referred to him as a, quote, child of low ability. His parents at that point had pretty much decided to pull Jonathan from that school and re-enroll him into the school he had previously attended. Starting 4th grade at another school in the middle of the school year was a bit stressful, but Jonathan handled it pretty well. At least he wasn't getting detention all the time, so that was good. In fact, his new teacher didn't seem to hate him like the teacher at the Catholic school seemed to. At the new school, he even made a few friends. Unfortunately, they only had a few months before the school year came to an end, and they all left for the summer vacation. Throughout the rest of elementary school, Jonathan seemed to excel. The teachers didn't seem to hate him, and he seemed to do pretty well in his classes. When high school started, he felt like he was a little fish in a big pond for the first year. As high school went on, he got involved more and more activities, which went out for sports and became friends with more and more students. At one time, he had a guy that had gotten pissed at him about something that Jonathan had no idea about. The other guy was so pissed that he threatened to shove Jonathan's head through the windshield of his car. Jonathan was pretty terrified, to say the least, and for quite a few months had a staff member escort him to his car. To his surprise, the students that had threatened him never actually acted on the threat. All through high school, Jonathan dreamed about being the best he could be. He wondered if he was ever going to amount to anything. He had heard from a few of his friends how their parents had commented that they were never going to go anywhere in life. It made him wonder about his own life. His parents had never made those comments to him, but he still wondered about it. Would he ever get where he wanted to go? Would he ever make anything of himself? All he wanted to do was prove to everybody that he could be something someday. Even though he was only a teenager in high school, his biggest fear was that he would be a failure. But to his surprise, he managed to make it through high school and went on to attend college. He still had his struggles while he was in college, but he continued to push on and do the best that he could. His biggest struggle was when he first started at the university, and it was his first day of college chemistry. The instructor gave all the students a test to see where they were skill-wise. Jonathan didn't know how well he did, but after taking the exam, the instructor called him up and pretty much recommended that he drop the class and take it again at a later date. He didn't really want to take the class to begin with, so he happily agreed. As the years went by while he was attending university, things seemed to get easier. College courses didn't seem quite as hard, and he no longer wondered if he could do it. Near the end of his 4-year tenure, he had joined multiple student groups and had gotten his grades up in all his classes, and things seemed to be going well. He had even joined a group that was all about students that wanted to start their own businesses. Every week when he attended another meeting, he felt like he was one step closer to achieving his dreams. So many people in his life were telling him that he shouldn't focus on trying to start a business, but that he should instead go get a job at a regular company. Start at the bottom and work his way up. They said he could work from the ground floor and eventually, after many, many years, become a manager and eventually get a pension and retire from the company. Jonathan was always like, I don't know what to tell you, but that just sounds depressing. Why the hell would I want to do that? They were always like, because that's just how the world works. Go get a good job, work your way up, and then retire. Jonathan, however, didn't listen to them. He kept meeting with the other students who were all of the same mind that he was. All of them had similar dreams. To one day be working in their own business and have the life they dreamed of. Before Jonathan knew it, college was ending and it was time to head out into the world. He was nervous at first, but next thing he knew, an investor reached out to him and asked him some questions about what his business ambitions were. After talking for a few days and telling the investor what he had in mind, the investor and Jonathan signed a contract and he opened his very first business. Things were rough at first. He had many plans for his business. It was his baby after all. He knew where he wanted his business to be, but he wasn't sure how to get it to that point. Thankfully, his investor was able to give him some advice, and between the two of them, the business took off and became one of the most successful operations in the Midwest. Later in life, he had set his business pretty much to run on autopilot with managers to handle all the day-to-day stuff. He would sit in his large, spacious house and look back at all the things he went through when he was younger. Life hadn't always been easy, but still, he was grateful for everything he had gone through because it shaped him into the man that he was today. Thankfully, he had always continued pushing forward and refusing to quit. At that point in his life, looking back on everything that happened, enjoying the time with his wife and his kids and his grandkids, he was grateful for his faith. Grateful he had the strength to keep going. Grateful that the naysayers didn't get the better of him. But most of all, he was grateful that he held steadfast to his determination and had gotten to where he was today. Not only succeeded at his business, but also had achieved his dream of a family and was happy at how his life had turned out. After years and years of pushing forward, he had finally made it, even when he wasn't sure it was going to happen. And after all the stress, all the headaches, and all the tension, finally, he lived happily ever after. The end. Once again, guys, I want to say I appreciate everybody that tuned in this week. This story was a little bit shorter. The next couple rounds actually they're a little bit longer. I had a little bit more time to commit to them. But I still hope you guys enjoyed it. Feel free to, still got that email out there, blodgetshowpodcast@gmail.com. Feel free to drop me a line, let me know what you think, and also whenever I'm publishing the episodes, I'm including a link for where y'all can tip if you want to. Not required, obviously, but if you feel inclined, I definitely appreciate it. Any support that the show receives definitely helps go towards keeping it up and running. But I definitely look forward to getting the next week's story, recorded and published for you guys, because I think you guys will enjoy it. Seems like I'm definitely noticing. It's like writing is one of those things for me. I've noticed that I've always been passionate about it, but I've noticed that it's like one of those things where the more you do it, the easier it gets, and the better you feel like you're doing. So I definitely think you guys are going to really enjoy the upcoming Storytime Fridays. So if you enjoyed it at all, even though it was that was actually a short story. Other ones are going to be short-ish. They're going to be pretty long still, even though they're technically, not a book. They're a short story, but hey, So, feel free to join me on every Tuesday as we do Real Talk Tuesdays, and come back on Fridays for the next round of Storytime Friday on the Blodgett Show. Once again, my name is Chris. I'm your host. I appreciate you guys coming and hanging out with me, and feel free to like and follow, tell your friends, and believe you can, believe you will, and you're already halfway there. And then you just have to go out there and do it. And then, keep on moving forward, guys. That's probably my biggest saying that I say all the time to all my friends, and I say it to my family at home, is that no matter what, no matter how stressed we are, no matter how many doubts we have, as long as we are getting up every day and putting one foot in front of the other, continuing to try and continuing to move forward, then that's all we can do, because eventually, it's like the saying I used to say on my Facebook lives. It's like the scenario of you're in a car and you got the pedal all the way down and the wheels are free spinning. They free spin for a while, and all you're doing is kicking up kicking up mud, dirt, and whatnot, and eventually you hit solid ground and the car just takes off. Well, that's pretty much my motto for moving forward, is just keep pushing forward, doing what you gotta do. And even if you're struggling to have the faith that's gonna happen, if you keep at it, eventually it will happen. But obviously, if you give up, it won't. So, on that note, guys, appreciate you being here, and I will talk to you guys on, I believe, episode 58. That one is going to be Real Talk Tuesday, and then again next Friday for Storytime Fridays. So, have a good one, guys. We'll talk to you later.